absolutely.
All right.
And I'm not.
Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I am here. Listen, she's the guide, she's the truth teller, she's the one we all want to be our mom. Hi, Dorinda Medley.
Oh, that is the best compliment you could ever give me. People say that to Hannah all the time. They're like, when we're out and about or we'll be somewhere, shopping and stuff, they'll be like, oh my God, you have the coolest mom. She's like, who? I mean, 'cause Hannah doesn't look at me as anything other than mom, right?
I loved your book, Make It Nice. She cooked, she decorated, she made it nice, and so I'm an auditory learner. I've always been an auditory learner. So I'm a big audiobook listener. So of course, I listened to your audiobook. So I heard you read the whole thing to me,
Well, I
and
thought it was so important to do it in my voice because one of the things, the premises of the book when I started it is I thought, like, I'm not a writer, so let's not try to be what I'm not, right? So how do I want people to receive this? I want to pretend like they met me somewhere. I sat down in a living room and they said, tell me about yourself. So I wanted it to be as if I was talking to you at a cocktail party.
that's exactly the vibe it gave off. And it made me miss your Sirius XM show because I used to listen every week when you were doing that. And it made me, like, you're so good, like, you have such a good voice and you give such great advice. Is that something that you enjoyed? I mean, I would assume that you loved doing the radio
I
show.
loved radio. I was hoping that show would continue. It kind of just sort of was a summer gig, and then I went back to filming, and it's a conflict to do it. And it just never. But listen, let's manifest that because I really enjoyed radio. It just came very naturally to me because I'm a real fill in the blank person. Like I'm a perfect person for cocktail parties. So if you ever have an awkward cocktail party, invite me. I can talk about laundry for 35 minutes.
Wait, speaking of laundry, you just told me that you just had your first Airbnb guest. Are you currently in the Berkshires right now?
I'm in the Berkshires, and I thought I would. They came last night, and it was so funny because I really didn't really think about it. I think because I've got so much going on, and then yesterday when it came time for them to come, I was sort of like, wait a second,
But wait, but
I
Dorinda,
so
break this down for me. You were in the house with them?
no, 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 no. I actually went and stayed at the iconic Red Line Inn, but my I worked at for 150 years. That basically saved my life and got me into college. So I went and stayed up there because Sarah, now one of the granddaughters, own it. And I went up and stayed there for the night. It was so weird because I've never stayed at Red Line Inn. I've always worked at Red Line Inn. So all of a sudden I'm a guest and people are like, could we get you anything? I'm like, no, I get the stuff. I am the waitress. Like it was so weird. Okay. And then this morning I came over. I said to Diana, the girl that was a concierge running it, and they did Airbnb. I got to give them a shout out. Super professional. They had like a security guard met me at my gate, and the guy's like, "Can I ask who you are?" I'm like, "I own the house." Okay.
Well, by the way, I do want to say that it has not been widely reported that, first of all, this is all for charity. And I want to
Yeah.
make that clear because I think there were some people that are like, why is Dorinda Airbnb her house? She's not, guys. This is a charity thing. This is like a
Yes.
big deal. So it's like, I mean, it's a
I
hundred
love
bucks a
Mama
night.
Montana house. Yeah, exactly.
Say
It
that,
was
say
like
that again.
I did it for Ronald McDonald. Ronald McDonald House is one of my favorite. I've been working with them forever. Richard and I used to work with them and do a lot of stuff because Richard loved any sort of local charities. He was all about doing stuff locally. So I just, when they approached me about it, I thought, why not? The house is, listen, if I can have all those girls here for 4 days and it can survive, it certainly can survive a vetted couple from Airbnb. Believe me, this poor house has suffered a lot worse.
I had multiple groups of friends who were like, you better be on this, like trying to book. I'm like, listen, this is a lot I'm not fighting like the thousands of people who are going to try and like book.
Well,
Like,
what's so funny? One of the agreements I made in the beginning is I wouldn't be involved. I couldn't put people forward. So, of course, every single person in my life was like, you must have an in. I'm like, I really don't. I had to let the process happen. I had to lean into it. And I'm all about that. And I talk about that in the book. Sometimes you just have to lean into things, good things, even sometimes negative things, and just roll with it because that's when great things happen. Like, I got to be honest with you. I would do this again. They were so happy to see me. And they literally were so happy in the house. You know, I live in the house, so I don't see it from that perspective. I see it as a big, huge nightmare. I'm trying to run all the time and keep organized and constantly throwing away stuff and painting stuff and da da da. It's like a living human thing for me. The house is a living being for me. Okay. They were like, oh my God, we got to sit in the blue room and it was so incredible at night. I'm like, really? Because I don't see it anymore.
I mean, let's remind people, Cal Radswell is the one who named it Blue Stone Manor live on the show. And
Correct.
in the book, you talk about how you wanted it to be Frankenstein meets Marilyn Monroe. Can
Correct.
you like go deeper on this? And also, like, where did you get your interior design taste from?
And the house it had been kept up, but it hadn't been really, really restored, I don't think ever, since 1902. So when we got the house, we thought we were going to shut it down for a year and move back in. But really, it was 3 years. It took us to restore the house, because there's one thing to renovate a house like this, and it changes its personality, because the house has a personality. It's a very distinct house. It's another thing to renovate, but really restore the house, because you have to say, I'm not going to fight with it, but I'm going to put my stamp on it. Right. And listen, it's a old Stanford white Tudor house. It was built in 1902. It was meant to be a cottage. And it was at one point a supposed speakeasy when they were doing bootlegging up the Hudson, and all these famous people would come do and sit in the basement. And and there's a rumor that Al Capone actually had visited the Berkshires and visited this house. So the house has a lot of secrets, right? And so when I came in, and we did a really clever thing, which I suggest to everybody, when you buy a house, we all have, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. I said to Richard, let's live in the house and figure out what we want of the house and what the house wants of us. And it totally changed. So we lived in the house for a year, and it changed my whole perspective about what I wanted for the house. Like, I didn't move any walls. I just kind of went with it, and I sort of brought it back to life, and just the inners are incredibly beautifully done. You got to remember too, we put a lot into this house because I was going to be here with Richard. We had the whole plan done. Hannah was going to go to, Paige and Aiden were going to go to college. Hannah was going to go to college. Richard was going to sort of semi-retire and write, because he was a big writer, political writer. And our life was going to be mainly here, Blue Stone Manor. And then, maybe go to Washington, maybe have a little place in New York, maybe go to London. So we had it figured out, right? And then poof. The sad part of the whole story is we shut the house in 2007. And we didn't move back in 2010, almost the beginning, and Richard died in 2011. So sadly, he didn't really get to enjoy it.
But going back to this vision of Frankenstein meets Marilyn Monroe.
Because I wanted it to be both glamorous and mysterious. I wanted people to, as I say to people that come in, you either love to hate it and hate to love it, because it is like no other. It's a talking piece. And I love a house that's and it's very cozy, but it's definitely a little, like, you can imagine this house in a Transylvania kind of episode with the dark walls and
you say how you say that again, the dark walls,
the lacquered walls and the crazy foiled wallpaper and the over the top chandeliers and all the paintings around. It just lends itself to a world that doesn't exist anymore.
You said also on the Housewives, this beautiful line that has stayed with me. One of my favorites is money talks and wealth whispers. And I'm reminded of that when you talk about how you wallpapered the inside of the closets.
Yeah, Carol loved that.
I love that too.
Carol was like, what? No, I literally found this foiled in London. There's a wacky place off of Portobello Road that does all the old foiled wallpapers, which may to some be a little bit tacky, but I think they're fantastic. I mean, you can't do a whole room in them because it would be overwhelming. But I thought, when I was looking at the closets, I was like, I need to do something with these closets. I want the closets how can I have this beautiful wacky house and then open a coat closet and have it be just, so it's another talking piece.
And I just want to say, between you and I'm in full support of a show centered around you and Blue Stone Manor. We're not going to talk about it, but
let's manifest it.
let's
I
manifest
think,
it.
what's great about Blue Stone Manor that I'm so appreciative of is that it's sort of an urban legend. It's like a character in itself. So, when I was put on pause, it was like people, if I swear to God, this is what I would get. Dorinda's not coming back. No Blue Stone Manor. No Len. Len was like a big, I would say to Len when I'd see the comments, Len, look at, there you are again. No Len. They missed you. Oh, Miss D, we are fine.
One of my favorite things about you is that you were, speaking of the house, you were a New York City real estate agent for several years. And I loved your
my husband.
Yes. So explain if that's how you actually met Richard.
That's how I met Richard. I met Richard because I got a call from his Egyptian secretary at the time, and she had picked me out. I worked for a very tiny firm called Mercedes Burke, and it was like a specialty firm. And I partnered with my friend Sarah Recchia, so we were like the crazy blondes from London. I just moved back from London, and we would only mainly do like townhouses and people that were moving from abroad, because that was sort of our sensibility. We just had it all worked out, right? And I got a cold call from Curation one day, and they said, Mr. Medley, my client would like to meet with you and look at townhouses. And I met Richard with his very young girlfriend. And I thought to myself, oh, one of those, right? And I was all dressed. I'll never forget, I was wearing like an Alaya dress. I was all very hip back then, right? And yeah, they were going to move from Washington. They were going to move into a townhouse. It all seemed very well, older man with younger woman. Didn't think much of it. He did make a comment once about my thigh-high boots at a one of the showing. It was snowing out. He's like, those don't look like snow boots. I'm like, honey, those are my snow boots. Okay. And I remember I teetered off into the snow. And then about 6 months later, I got a call from his secretary and said, Dr. Medley would like to speak to Dorinda Medley. And I'll never forget the moment. I remember not picking it up and saying to one of the owners, he can't take back the commission, right? Because I've spent that. I mean, I was like, we're done with that part, right?
So walk me through, like, actually getting your real estate license. Did you actually go into the school and sit there in the classroom? And you did, so talk to me about
34th Street. 34th Street.
I too have my real estate license. I don't practice, but I did get it because I'm obsessed with real estate and I wanted to learn.
Me too. And why not? In fact, I'm thinking about taking the online one again from Massachusetts. Why not, right? Yeah. Why not have it? It's so easy, the course. And the course is actually very interesting. Yeah, I took the course. I took the test. It was pretty straightforward.
Wait, can I tell you, Dorinda, you want to know a fun fact about that real estate test? So Josh Flagg from $1 Million Listing LA?
Yes,
he failed the test 3 times. He kept missing. He could never remember the stuff about the carbon monoxide detectors. He failed it 3 times in LA.
Then he didn't probably read the book or something, because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, because you got to remember, they're giving it to a wide berth of people, so they can't, make it too hard. Otherwise, I mean, everybody and their mothers are real estate agents. So, I mean, believe it or not, I'm actually quite studious. So things like that are not that hard for me. I like to study, and and I'm so competitive that I have to nail every test. You know what I mean? I'm just so competitive. The thought of failing the test would kill me. You know what I mean? I was that person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved it because for me, I always wanted to work. Even when I was with Hannah's father, Ralph, I always worked. I had DCL Cashmere. I was teaching aerobics. I am not good with idle hands. Like, I am an entrepreneur through and through.
So do you still have your Upper East Side? Like, talk to me about your specific real estate. Do you still have the apartment that you own on the Upper East?
Yes. Yeah, I've had that. I bought that 9 days after 9/11 for nothing.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? I had looked at it before, because one thing I have to say that I always say to women, especially women that get divorced, that have children, buy real estate. Because if you get any settlement, just take it immediately and buy real estate. Because all else can go wrong in your life, but if you have a home and a roof over your head, you're good. So my whole thing was after I divorced Hannah's father, who's I'm very close to, and we had a very amicable divorce. I said, I'm going to buy an apartment. I knew that Hannah's father would take care of her and her school fees. And I thought, if I own my apartment and Hannah's taken care of, New York is actually quite inexpensive when you think about it, because really, what do you have to do? The main things in New York are real estate and school fees. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to buy an apartment in cash and just have it and not have to worry, because I never knew I knew once. I'm terrible with having money in hand because I like to spend. That's why every time I get a check, I give it to my friend Mona at Morgan Stanley, and I keep 10% of it. She gives me 10% back to spend, and she invests the rest because I will spend it. I love to spend money. I'm like that old school mafia person. I love it in hand.
You actually say in the book how it's the actual reading the book really gave me a lot of insight into your relationship to money, because you talk about how you're clearly very successful through various means, and you talk about how you will like lie awake at night or have nightmares about literally losing all your money, even though it would be nearly impossible for you to spend all of it. It's something that really, you have an interesting relationship to money.
But not really, because my mother says to me all the time, it takes a small leak to sink a great ship. It takes a small leak to sink a great ship. And I'm like, oh my God, is there any leaks? Like I fear money. And I think you should fear money because it can slip through your hands very quickly. And as a woman that, I don't think about my life now. I think about, and I assume nothing. Like I assume I'll never get married again. I may, or I may not. But I want to make sure I want to make sure I know what 85 looks like for me. And I want to have a place to live. I want great health insurance. I want to be able to take a couple of vacations and leave, take care of my daughter. I just think you should be, money's a scary thing. And how many times have you heard that people that you thought were so wealthy and so this, and they get a tax bill and they're broke?
What do you make of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Like on this exact topic?
I don't want to speak of it because I just think it's I don't like to see anybody personally go through anything, bad like that. I can't speak of it because I just don't know. It's like unfolding before our eyes, and it's sort of a real wow thing. But if I would say anything, and I'm not applying this to any one particular person, is my mother was always about, my mother said to me, follow the checks and you'll follow the man. Do you know Richard Medley never wrote a check the whole time he was married to me? Nor did Ralph. My mother always said that, follow the check and you follow the man, because you can follow a man by where he spends his money.
Wow. Your life, speaking of like working as a real estate agent, I love that you were also like working as an aerobics instructor. And you talk about how like you would make mixtapes and like actually sell them to.
Well, I'm a frustrated DJ D nice. I'm a really frustrated. That's what I still to this day. I give Spotify. Anybody that has a birthday, I send them a Spotify playlist just for them.
Did you, like living on the Upper East Side, did you ever get into the whole spin craze, like SoulCycle and Flywheel?
No, I never did that. And you know what? I wish I did do that. But it was just, what the problem with all that is that what's the one? Oh, the one that's really dark.
SoulCycle.
Barry's Bootcamp.
Oh, Barry's Bootcamp. Mm-hmm.
The problem is no one seems like they're having fun. Everybody seems slightly like angry. I went to Barry's Bootcamp and I just felt terrible about myself. And I didn't feel like anybody wanted to talk or have fun. The great thing about when I taught aerobics, and I taught at the Vertical Club, and everybody would come dressed up, like it was fun. People talked and chatted, and you went and got a green juice afterwards, or back then you'd get like a shake. I think we were all on that shake, the Slim Fast. That was a big thing.
Yes. It was like 3 shakes. It was like 2 shakes a day and a sensible dinner.
Exactly. And I would love to get into the SoulCycle thing, but I'm afraid. I just think the whole thing is scary.
You would actually like it. I mean, it's a little bit past its prime now, but I feel like that's the vibe you're looking for, where it's about like the music and connecting to like spirituality, like the
Well, you know
instructor.
what's so funny is I watch them on, because you can watch the Peloton ones.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the people, they're almost like preachers. Like they're
Yeah.
very like they're like shamans the way they talk, and then they have the music, and like you could just forget about the exercise. You could just lay on your bed and listen to them speak as affirmations every day. And some of those teachers are huge. They're
Yeah,
huge
absolutely.
characters.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I'm going to try to get into SoulCycle. You're like the 10th person that's told me that. And I think if you hear anything 3 times or more, you have to do it.
I think you'd really like it.
The owner, I did something with her at Saks, or I met her at Saks, and she was like, come anytime you want. You know, the woman that owns it.
Yeah, Julie
Like,
Rice or Elizabeth
yeah,
Cutler.
yeah, she's very hip. She's very chic. And I was like, "Ugh, I don't know. I mean, I just wish they had sort of a Soul Cycles where you could like stop and go and just like start at your pace.
You talk about you actually write very vividly in the book about filming the show, about filming Housewives. And I just want to read this quote because I want to like dig into it. You say, before I was on the show, I considered myself to be a stylish woman who was somewhat attractive. I was both shocked and humbled when I saw myself on television for the first time. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I dressed. I had no idea how crooked my nose was. I was much heavier than I thought. I couldn't believe the way I walked. And this, in a nutshell, is why a first-year housewife looks nothing that's like that same housewife in her second year. And you sort of sum it up by saying, with greater awareness comes greater curation.
Yes.
Can you speak to this?
Yes, because, until you see yourself on film, you're not aware of how you are received in the world. Like, I didn't know I spoke with my hands so much. I didn't know, like, I always knew my nose was crooked, but I'm like, wow, you would define me as a woman with a crooked nose. Like, that's not how I thought of myself in the world, because I see my inner self more than I see my outer self, right? And then people judge you for it. So you start to correct yourself immediately and fall into that. And you can see it. Some women, I mean, I kind of corrected it and dialed it up and figured out what was right, what was wrong. But then I kind of stopped. You can see how some people from their first season to their sixth season look unrecognizable. So it depends on how far you want to take it. And the trap is real, because even the other day I was like looking at myself in an interview. I'm like, boy, your face is getting old. You're turning into that woman. Like, do I do that thing? Should I have a facelift? Should I Should I do that? Because people recognize it. And God knows people love to point it out. Because one thing I've kind of accepted about myself is I don't want to, first of all, I'm Hannah's mother. Okay. It is, she's 27. Okay. I'm never, the ship has sailed as far as me trying to look 30, and nor do I want to. And also, I want people to love me for Dorinda and for what I'm going to contribute to the world, not how my face looks. I want people to, at 80 years old, still be talking to Dorinda, not talking to someone that has, listen, I'm sure at some point I'll do a tweak here and there. We all love our Botox, but I've kind of, at this point in my life, reconciled with, I just don't know if I want to take it to that level. I don't personally want to. I think people kind of accept me for me.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I will say something I think that differentiates you from most quote unquote housewives, or just like, people on Bravo, at least like part of the reason that I was initially drawn to you when you first joined the show. I can pick up on like a lot of energies, and you do have like this masculine energy about you. And I'm sure that has to do with, I actually want to talk about like astrology a little bit with you, but most of these other women, they're just like all feminine energy, which is very expansive, whereas masculine energy is very like, I don't want to say rigid, but it's very like, it can be a little bit direct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't I'm not, how do you put this? Like, my goal isn't to please other people. Like my goal is to be successful in my life. And that, I mean, successful spiritually and physically and financially, and make a mark in the world that people remember. I don't need to be remembered for, not looking my age.
Do you know, are you into astrology?
Yes, there's a wonderful astrologist that will change your life.
Who?
It takes 6 months to see him. His name's Jade Luna. And the weird thing is I saw him seven months ago. It took me like 6 months to see him. I'll send you you can look him up on Instagram, Jade Luna. You can only email him, and then he'll give you some bizarre date 7 months from now, right? All these famous people, and I'd forgotten about it and he's not expensive. He's like $125. So it's obviously not about that. He lives in, that place out in Palm Springs where all the sort of shamans live and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like Joshua, near Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he lives in Joshua Tree, talks about it. And he has you save it, and he says, save it. It may not make sense to you now, but as these 6 months I tell you about unfold, I want you to listen to it once a month. It is bizarre, some of the stuff that he talks about, and it's all kind of unfolded.
So how do you interpret, so we know you're a Sagittarius sun and you're an Aries moon. How do you, like, I want to hear your interpretation, because like, clearly like you understand this stuff. I want to hear your interpretation of how this manifests in your life.
I think that I am a sign that's a very knowing sign. I think I carry knowing, not just knowledge, but knowing. Like, I think one of my gifts and one of my curses is that I don't deal with bullshit or fakeness very well, because I can see through it. I can see the other. So it bothers me. And it's something that I have to really work on, because if I call it like I see it, because it's just who I am, I don't really have, and I think also too, I'm a bit of a wolf in the way that I like to move in a certain way. And, I like to be the leader of the pack, and I like to be very strong. And I also think that, I think if one of my signs carries a lot, I don't think people realize it, but my sign also carries a lot of vulnerabilities, because they don't realize it, because I'm constantly strong, but it's actually quite a vulnerable sign. And it, when my sign gets hurt, or I'm treated disloyally, or it cuts deep. I may not show it. So I tend to be like a phoenix that constantly goes under and has to rest, and then I'll come back out, and then I go, but I don't have a lot of gray in my sign. It's either black or white.
So something that you should look into, and I'm sure this guy, when he printed everything out for you, so there's not only the main signs, but then you have like the planets. And I pulled up your chart, and your Mercury is the way we communicate. Your Mercury is in Capricorn, and that is why when Mercury is in Capricorn, it means the way you communicate is very no nonsense and has no qualms about bringing people back to earth and back to reality.
And people know it. And it's so funny. It's funny because my daughter's a Capricorn. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. But what's funny about it is, and it's a very funny thing, and I've always known this, and women that I meet in my life, more women than men, if they like me, they love me. If they know that I know and I don't buy into the bullshit, they don't like me, because it's too scary for them. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't be sold on all the bullshit stuff that women try to sell. So I'm not good with superficial women.
Yeah. Are you into in addition to astrology, like, are you into tarot? Like, do you pull cards?
I'm not really. That scares me.
That scares you. It can be like a nice ritual. Like
Diane Sincala won't allow that. God, Diane Sincala would have a fit. There's no tarot. There's no I remember when the Ouija board came out, my mother was like, "Don't you ever even get close to that game. That is not coming in."
But Dorinda, I do know that you're into like healing herbs. Like, you took all these classes. Talk to me about this.
Well, that's real. That's real. I mean, poultices and stuff are real, because I took if anybody wants to do something very interesting, I took this great herbology course on you could take it online, and I bought all the books, and basically what you learn is every single medicine ever created, if you filter it down, came from an herb. And the Native Americans, there were many, many, many of them in the Berkshires, knew how to heal everything. And they would be called on when people would get sick. They would call on them because they knew what plants, what teas to make for healing. So they were truly the medicine doctors. So you can actually make poultices. I mean, listen, you can make poultices for different reasons. You can make healing poultices. You can make poultices for different intentions, and then boil them and put them out, at sunrise.
I mean, are you talking about like spells in a way?
They say you can. Listen, poultices, you can use it with intention.
I'm so into this.
Okay. I'll show you. Want me to get the poultices?
Yeah, please. Yeah, quickly. Yeah.
I made these for my father first because he had a bad neck and he was carrying a lot. Hold on, I'm going to get your number and send you a picture.
Okay.
Because Len has put away everything for the Airbnb. But basically, when I went to the Dorado in Puerto Rico, there was a guy that was a healer that did this treatment in the treetops, and he uses poses. And he says, at some point, you're going to think you see stuff in the trees, and it's really someone coming to visit you. And I'm a bit of a skeptic, but I leaned into it, and it really did happen. And I was like, wow, that was real. So afterwards, I talked to him about the different things, and he was actually a healer. And he said he showed me all the things that herbs he uses to heal. And he taught me how to make the poultices, which is wild. And then you steam them, and then you can use them for all different purposes.
I love that.
My dad said it was amazing. I made with him with stargazer and lavender and chamomile and stuff. And I drizzled it with oils, and then I steam them, and you put them on your back, these compresses, and they just penetrate through your whole back.
I want to get your perspective on fame. You write a lot about like the process of, like you were just you going essentially going from like a non-famous person to becoming a famous person, and how the process has a way, you write how the process has a way of making your real life fade into the distance with no room for the things that make you you. You say the production staff and castmates become your whole world. When it stops filming, it's like vertigo and you feel this anxiety.
It's true.
Talk more about the anxiety. I guess both of that, the vertigo and the anxiety.
Well, I think it's very immersive when you're filming. It's all day, every day, 5 days a week. And even on your days off, you're talking about it, and you're planning, and you're thinking about what happened and how this is going to go and what. It's like playing chess. Every move is important, and it's cumulative. So it's very hard when you're filming those 4 months to just go out and have dinner on a Saturday night with people that aren't filming, because your head is so not, people are saying, so what are you up to? You're like, I'm up to filming. That's what I'm doing. And you can't sit there and talk about what's happening on the show, because A, it's not allowed, and B, they won't get it because it doesn't seem. And then what happens is the last day of filming, you have the wrap party. It's your whole life performance. And literally the next day, it's done. Everybody leaves. All the cameramen are gone. All the production's gone. There's no more cars picking you up. There's no more schedules. And you definitely have a moment where you're like, okay, I got to call my old friends now. I kind of have to ease back. And it takes you a minute. It takes you a minute to become that person again, like go grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I don't even really grocery shop when I'm filming, because we're filming the whole time. And it's just a matter of going out, having a meal, doing the thing, coming back home, changing, resting, thinking about what happened, going back out. You are in it, and you're in this. If you're, I think, a housewife that's in it, you're really in it. You know what I mean? So it definitely is, it's a process, and you have to sort of shed that skin of it. And for me, it was always good, because what I did is that I would then immediately go into Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. And throw myself into my family. And then I take 2 weeks off every January and just go away, like the Dorado, like somewhere quiet and peaceful, where there's no chaos, where there's no nothing, and just totally reconnect with myself.
What has been your relationship to fame? So many people that I admire, like Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell, have spoken a lot about how fame, the experience of fame, it really is like a drug.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I don't have that kind of fame. I'm a reality star, but I mean, I think recognition, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility, because people, I mean, what an honor when people admire you or people recognize you. People get the courage. Like you could see it. It happened just the other day at the casino in Tampa. You know, I saw this woman, she was looking at me. I was in the hallway early in the morning at like 6:30 trying to get a coffee. And she kind of caught sight of me. It's almost like they didn't know what to do. And I said, oh yeah, I'm Dorinda. How you doing? You're going to go get your coffee. I try to like move it along. So there's not all that awkwardness. You know what I mean? But it's not real. I mean, you know, I think that's one of the pitfalls that you got to be careful of, because the minute I think you think it truly, I say it in the book, it's truly the most enticing mistress.
Yes.
Because if you start to believe in it, it really can consume you. Because people love, and it changes like this. I mean, 1 minute someone's like, I love you. You're so great. You're so beautiful. You're so wonderful. You're the best. And then 2 days later, it's like, you're nothing more than this. I hate you. This people that, so you have to keep that balance. You have to keep a little bit of bay and keep your normal life and your normal friends, and not normal, but your sort of regular life, your regular friends, your regular routines. But I'm a very hands-on person. So I think just cooking and taking care of your house and being with your family keeps me very grounded. Like I am not famous to die in St. I can assure you. I said to her the other day, you know, I was in the Berkshire Eagle, which is the local paper. And my father was just like, you would have thought. She was like, look at this. You're in the paper. Can you believe this? The Berkshire Eagle. Meanwhile, I was in the New York Times the other day. Great, had a whole section of the New York Times. Nothing. I said, Mom, did you get the New York Times? Oh, we don't read that paper. I said, I know you don't read the paper, but I'm in it. Oh, that's nice. I said, so then I brought it home. I said, oh, Mom, look, here's the section on the New York Times. Oh, yeah, that's it. Anyway, I mean, the Berkshire Eagles would have all about, because that's what she relates to. She doesn't care about the New York Times. She doesn't care who I am in the New York Times, you know?
Speaking of the cameo that you made on $1 Million Listing, which was super fun, I expected you to be in more of The Big Shot with Bethenny. Like I don't know if it was just in my head, but like in my mind, I thought that you were going to be like coaching the girls. Like what was that like?
No, that was just an appearance I did. That was her. Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I did watch it. I watched a little bit of it. Yeah. I mean, I watch all my friends' stuff.
Yeah.
That were successful.
And so, you know, I don't know how widely this is known, but when you said in that scene, you know, how am I doing? Not well, bitch. That person you're speaking to is actually Candace Bushnell, who is the author of Sex and the City.
Correct.
Which is hilarious. How do the Housewives know Candace Bushnell?
I have no idea.
You just have no idea. Like, why was she there? That's so I mean, or does it actually make sense?
I think she lives in the Hamptons, I think.
So funny.
Yeah, she lives in the Hamptons. I mean, and she's been around a long time. We've all been around a long time.
Are you excited for the new Sex and the City?
I'm so excited for it. I love the fact that Sarah Jessica Parker has kind of gone with her natural self.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm psyched.
I think that's a big shout out to women. Like, you can be your most, you know, your natural, most beautiful. I love her look right now.
Final thing that we'll touch on, you write about how during your marriage to Richard, your lives were completely enmeshed, so much so that you let your friendships, your female friendships, take a back seat. And you say that the lesson in there is hold your friends close and don't put all your eggs in one basket, because you don't know what's going to happen. Why do you think you did that with Richard? Because you say you didn't do it with Ralph.
I think because the intensity of our family dynamics, you know, I think when you're blending two families, and Richard really needed someone to anchor that. And it just was where we were in our lives. I mean, we did everything together. It was very enchanting the way he wanted me with him. Richard wanted me with him all the time in his meetings and everything he did. And he made me so much part of it. He used to say, I'm the map maker and you're the executor. And I think it was very empowering for me that this successful man would be like, hey, listen, I'm going to the Council of Foreign Relations tomorrow morning. I'd like you to come. And then that would lead into lunch. And then we would go home and he'd be writing, and then I would be making dinner. And, you know, I definitely lost myself in that I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being Mrs. Medley. I really did. It was all encompassing, you know, personally, in all ways. And he was like my best friend. But it wasn't good because when Richard passed, I really realized, wow, my life was, and we had an intense life. I mean, we were always traveling, always going places, always having people over, always doing fundraisers. Like we were on the go all the time. And then on the weekends, we'd have all the kids together. So then that became our lives. And it was very easy to fall into. And quite frankly, if he was alive, I'd probably still be doing that.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
know,
that actually raises a great question. Had he not, if we can sort of fantasize into a world where he didn't get sick, where do you think the two of you would be now? Would you still be living in the
right
Berkshire
here.
right there?
This was where he wanted to be because he's a great writer. And I think he'd be amazed that I wrote a book because he said he said I
Yeah.
didn't I talk so much I couldn't have enough patience to write a book. And I think we'd be traveling a lot. I think he'd be spending a lot of time in Washington. He did a lot of work in Washington. We'd probably spend some time in New York and probably a lot of time in London.
And you, I believe you wrote in the book that Housewives had actually approached you while you were married, right? Is that
Well, Housewives, I knew about Housewives when it started because remember, I knew all the girls. I know all those girls. I've known them forever. So if you look at the early episodes, I'm in the background a lot. It
right?
just never fit into my life until
Like, do you think if they had like knocked on your door, why, like in this world where he's still here?
no, I wouldn't have, no. And they did want me to do it when he was, no, that wasn't our life. My life was, Richard and the family and
Yeah,
Washington and political fundraisers and, you know, lunches at council formula. It was a different world.
yeah.
It just,
Thank you so much. This has been a
thank
pleasure getting to know you better.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.